everyone, welcome back to another cult movie review with me, Bo, here on the Film Scene Investigation channel. I hope everyone out there is doing good. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the 1993 action thriller Judgement Night. Before we get into it, guys, as always, if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel. All the support is greatly appreciated. So, Judgement Night from 1993 was directed by the filmmaker Stephen Hopkins and starred an ensemble cast of actors including Emilo Estevez, Cuba Gooding Jr. and Jeremy Piven. The film script went through several drafts before being finalized by scriptwriter Lewis Kolick in the early 90s. Now, Judgement Night only came to my attention sometime last year when I was scouring through various YouTube videos. So yeah, I'd never heard of this film before, but it was actually surprising since I knew all of the actors that were involved. From Emilo Estevez to Denis Leary, I'd seen all of these guys in various other movies, but I was, totally unaware of Judgement Night. When it comes to the narrative, we followed a group of guys who traveled together on a bus to attend a boxing match in Chicago. Frank, who was played by Emilo Estevez, was a young father getting to grips with parenthood for the very first time. Frank, his younger brother John, and their friends Mike and Ray drove into the city in this very expensive RV, fully equipped with alcohol and a satellite dish. The group were in high spirits. They were ready for a good night out, away from their wives, and ready to let loose, but things quickly turned sour when the guys got stuck in a traffic jam. It was total gridlock with dozens of cars backed up and nobody going anywhere. The character Ray, who was played by actor Jeremy Piven, was the one driving the RV and was extremely determined to get to the arena on time. Since Ray was driving the RV, he took it upon himself to take charge of the situation and decided to make a detour down a freeway. Ray was overconfident that he had saved the day, when in actual fact he had endangered himself and his friends. The guys quickly found themselves driving through a rundown residential neighborhood miles away from the arena. It was obvious that Ray's detour had indeed made things worse, but he remained steadfast that he was going to find a way out. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Ray hit someone who was walking out in the middle of the street. It all happened so fast, Ray did not have enough time to react properly. Initially, Frank kind of dismissed the whole situation. He just wanted to get on out of there, but the other guys insisted that they check it out. Ray tried to play it down as if it was just a bump in the road, but the guys wanted to be sure, so they took a look outside. It turned out that Ray had indeed hit someone with the RV, someone called Teddy, who was in serious need of some medical attention. At this point, the night was ruined. They couldn't even get to the arena on time, and now, they'd actually ran someone over. Complete nightmare. Once Ray had discovered that he had hit someone, he knew he was in big trouble, so he decided to start hiding the various bottles of alcohol before any authorities arrived on the scene. Frank even told him to ring for an ambulance, but Ray, being so panicked and confused, hung up at the last moment. But making the decision not to call the authorities would ultimately come back to haunt Ray later on in the film. Teddy, who was played by actor Michael DiLorenzo, needed help, so the guys decided to pack up and drive off to the nearest hospital. While Ray was quite happy to just drive on, the guys, they made the right decision and decided to take charge and find help for Teddy. But as the guys were driving to the nearest hospital, a car from out of nowhere collided with the bus and they ended up crashing into an alleyway. Now, initially when I was watching this, I thought, okay, what, another accident happened, But it turned out that this time it was intentional. You see, Teddy wasn't this innocent bystander who unfortunately got ran down by Ray. In actuality, Teddy was a street thug who had just ripped off his boss and was trying to make an escape before he got ran over. 3 dubious-looking guys then exited the car and dragged the injured Teddy out onto the street. The guys on the bus had no idea what was going on, but didn't want to get involved with these random guys with guns. Another car would pull up, and out came Fallon, Teddy's boss, who was played by actor Dennis Leary. Teddy had messed up. He had stolen a lot of money from his boss, and Fallon was pissed. While Teddy said he was sorry and, plead for his innocence, Fallon just ignored him. I mean, in his eyes, Teddy had broken the golden rule and needed to be punished. Fallon ended up executing Teddy then and there in the middle of the street as the guys on the bus watched on in horror. I mean, when Fallon pulled the trigger, you could just see the dread on the guys' faces. With Teddy no longer being an issue, Fallon then set his sights on the rest of the guys on the bus. Frank and the guys had seen the whole thing go down. I mean, they had seen Fallon commit murder, and now they were witnesses to the crime, and Fallon needed them dead too. What followed was this cat and mouse game with Fallon and his henchmen hunting down the guys as they tried to call for help. At first, they sought refuge in a nearby apartment complex before heading down a sewer in an effort to hide from Fallon. They're running around, they're sweating, they're panicking. And, throughout the movie, you are asking yourself, where are the police? I mean, it's like, where are they, And even when they do get called, they don't even show up. And with that, you kind of have to suspend your disbelief while watching Judgment Night to really enjoy it properly. The serious lack of law enforcement was kind of, let's face it, it was borderline silly. But for me, I was able to look past it. And even with the plot holes, there was still a lot to enjoy from this movie. For me, the best scene in the entire film was the ladder bridge sequence where we saw the guys attempt to crawl across 2 buildings. Frank and the guys were being hunted down by Fallon's men and were moments away from being blown to pieces, so they decided to head to the rooftop where the only exit was across this precarious-looking ladder bridged between 2 buildings. One by one, the guys took it in turns to slowly crawl across the ladder, But Ray had other ideas. We learned that Ray had a fear of heights, and there was absolutely no way that he could cross. I mean, it wasn't even an option in his mind that he could do that. And so, yeah, while the other guys crossed, he stayed behind. He was too scared to make the crossing. He didn't want to potentially fall down all that way. But in all honesty, who could blame him? I, for one, am not a massive fan of heights. So, yeah, I could appreciate Ray's dilemma. What I didn't appreciate was the various POV shots of the camera looking over the edge. I mean, yeah, those visuals did freak me out a little bit. Frank did his best to encourage Ray to, take a chance and, attempt to cross over, but nothing worked. Ray had made his decision and instead tried to negotiate with Fallon and his men. I found this to be a pretty intense sequence and, yeah, a major highlight for the film. The whole thing felt very grounded and not necessarily out of the realms of possibility that these guys would attempt to, do something like that. As I said, I'm no fan of heights, but if there were a group of guys with guns chasing me, ready to kill me, I'd hate to be in that situation, but I would probably attempt to cross the bridge too. Anyways, the scene came to an abrupt end when the negotiating didn't work and Fallon decided to push Ray off the roof. The whole thing was pretty disturbing, actually, seeing Ray, fall to his death like he did, because I think knowing that the character had such a fear of heights made his death seem all that more cruel. There's no denying that Judgement Night had a really good ensemble cast. All of the actors got a chance to showcase their talents, and there were no bad performances. Emilo Estevez played the protective older brother quite well. Many times in the film, we saw Frank come to the aid of his brother John, doing his best to keep him safe. I liked Estevez in the role. He did his best with the material he had, and he delivered a fairly earnest performance. What I wasn't so keen on was how his character took control in the final act of the film, taking on Fallon one-on-one. Those guys were trying to choke each other out, punching, kicking each other. I'll be honest, I've never really seen Emilo Estevez as some sort of convincing action star. So seeing him being this dominant, being this kind of hero, saving the day, did seem like a stretch. Actor Jeremy Piven put in a very memorable performance as the fun-loving high flyer Ray Cochran. When he first showed up on screen, I'm going to be honest, I thought I was going to hate this character. Some loudmouth, always cracking jokes and being obnoxious. That's what I thought this Ray character was going to be. But, overall, I found him pretty likable. I mean, when it came to the rooftop sequence, I was really rooting for him. I really wanted him to, be successful in his negotiations with Fallon, over his freedom. I mean, Ray was offering money, he was offering jewelry, doing everything he could to convince Fallon to let him go. I also wanted to mention the actor Peter Green, who showed up as one of Fallon's henchmen, a guy called Sykes. I remember him so vividly from the Jim Carrey movie The Mask. So, yeah, it was really cool to see him pop up here on screen again. He was great in The Mask as this, gangster type criminal. And once again, he pulled off being the bad guy very convincingly. And so, dislikes for Judgment Night from 1993. My biggest dislike for the film would have to be the film's score that was produced by the composer Alan Silvestri. Now, Silvestri is a highly acclaimed composer. He's produced some great work over the years. Nobody can dispute that. And while his score for Judgment Night was solid and it was a, competent piece, ultimately for me, I thought it just didn't mix well with the film's tone and vibe. I felt the score was overdramatic and at times even bombastic. It just didn't complement the gritty visuals that were on screen. I mean, especially at the end of the film when Frank was fighting Fallon, the score was like, da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. I mean, it just really was distracting for me. Silvestri has produced some great material over the years for films like Castaway and Forrest Gump, big time Hollywood projects. But for a movie like Judgment Night, kind of this B-movie kind of project, it just, he was just the wrong choice. It needed to be a lot darker, it needed to be almost like minimalist, if that makes sense, whereas Silvestri had like so much instrumentation, it was this, orchestra, so big, and it really didn't match well. Another dislike I wanted to mention for Judgment Night was its length. Overall, I felt that the movie was way too long than it needed to be. I mean, Judgment Night had an interesting concept for sure, but by the final act, I was getting kind of restless. There was a lot of time given to one of the sequences where the guys decided to escape down a sewer. All the guys were, running down this tunnel as Fallon and his men were, not far behind them. If it was up to me, I would have removed the whole, entire sequence in the sewer, because for me it just felt like padding. It was like, okay, here's another location for these guys to, play hide and seek, where, at that point I was just like, can we, get on, to the end here? I also would have kept all of the action above ground, which would have retained some realism. Once the guys started, having a shootout underground, the story, started to get a bit silly for me. And so, ratings for Judgment Night from 1993. I'm going to be rating this movie a solid 3.5 out of 10. I enjoyed Judgment Night for what it was. Some entertaining 90 plus minutes of suspense and drama. It certainly was a well-made production with its slick, nihilistic atmosphere. And I like the film's simple yet effective premise that was enhanced by the solid lineup of actors involved. If you're looking for a more hard-hitting story with a lot of substance, then this movie is not for you. For those who have seen Judgment Night, please let me know what you think in the comments section below. For those who haven't, I'm going to just say that it's not essential viewing if you don't ever get around to seeing this movie, but if you're a fan of any of the actors involved, I'd give it a go. And well, that's all from me today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this review of Judgment Night from 1993. I'll be back next week as always. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course, take care.